everybody, my name is Glenn Lucas and today I'm going to take you through the steps of making one of my signature salad bowls. So I started wood turning many years ago, way back in 1990 at the age of 16. And in those days I was doing it as a hobby. I was playing around doing a lot of spindle turning, making bowls, making platters, really just trying to get lots of experience for something that I really loved doing. But in 1995, I decided to set up and become a professional wood turner. And at that point, I really decided it was important to create my own signature range. So here I have one of my current production salad bowls. And I really like how this looks and how it feels in my hands. So first of all, the weight feels really balanced in that when I pick it up, it doesn't feel too heavy or it doesn't feel too light, but it feels substantial enough to do the job that it was intended to do, which is to hold salad or fruit. But the shape on the outside, it's got an OG at the bottom, so my hands just fit right into the outside shape with that concave curve down there. And then the rim rolls in, but it's got quite a soft edge here, so as I'm holding it, I'm not feeling a sharp edge just there on my hand. But because the inside wall is undercut, it gets thinner as it gets towards the bottom, and that allows me to get a really good grip on the piece because it actually matches the shape of my hand when I'm holding it. Here I have one of my salad bowls just cut in half, and this was a pretty tough decision to make to run this through the bandsaw, but it gives you a good idea of what I'm looking for. So first of all, if I close down my hands to grab a bowl, the shape the inside of my hands or fingers create would be the shape or the letter P. So here I have a bowl that is quite special, and it's one of the early versions of these round rim bowls that I've just shown you. And this was made back in April of 1996, so that's 30 years ago. So there's a few things about this. One is that it's in daily use and it's never been re-oiled. Probably should at this stage, but I really wanted to see how my bowls stand up to neglect. So we wash it with soapy water when we've had our salads in it, but I'd never re-oiled it, and I suppose at this point it's due. But it still looks pretty good and it really is loved in our home. But there's a few things I'd like to mention. One is that I feel the original width of rim was just too heavy. At the time, I sort of liked the wider rim because it framed the food once it went in there, but it's not that easy to hold on to. It does require two hands because it's just that little bit heavy. Also, the rim is a little sharp here. So my newer bowls, the rim turn in by about 1/4 inch more, so this just drops down a little bit, making it more comfortable to hold, and the wall thickness of the rim is much thinner. So this is about 40 millimeters or 1 3/8 in wall thickness at the top, and then it goes down to about 3/4 inch on the sides or 20 millimeters. So it is very, very heavy. This bowl here is a recent version of that one there in the same dimension. So it's about 15 inches in diameter. Wall thickness, 22 millimeters, 7/8 of an inch in thickness. And then the wall thickness on the side is roughly about 10 millimeters or 3/8 of an inch. So this feels much better, and also it's got the depth, so it's about 5.5 inches deep. And it just feels right in my hands, and this is really for feeding a family with salad or fruit, whereas these smaller ones below are ideal for 2 people. So myself and Cornelia, when we're making salads just for ourselves, we tend to work with a bowl that's roughly about 12 inches in diameter by about 4 inches in thickness. So let's take a look at what's involved in making one of these. The piece of wood that I'm going to work on today is a piece of native Irish ash, and a lot of our ash trees have died in Ireland because of ash dieback disease, so I'm trying to rescue them now and give them a new life. Now this is probably the worst day I could have picked to cut up a section of this log because it's midsummer and it's one of the hottest days we've had so far this year, but I want to get a piece for the presentation. Normally I do all my rough shaping from about November until March, and then I'll get everything into the kiln. And during that time of the year, the humidity is high and the temperature is low, so there's not much chance of the wood cracking. The chainsaw I'm going to use to start with for cross cutting, it's a Stihl 500i, and I use a full chisel chain. It's not a skip tooth, and the right chain for the job is a sharp chain. So no matter what profile chain you have or how you've sharpened it, as long as it's sharp, you'll be able to cut out a bowl blank. And there's a lot of debates about the right type of chain, but I pretty much use a standard chain for all my cross cutting, 30-degree angle, and I'll talk about ripping in a moment. Now that I've taken that ring off, I suppose the first thing I notice is that there's really no colour in this. It's all white without a brown heart. So it's not ideal for my salad bowls, but perfect for practice material. I can see over here where some of the fibres got pulled out, and that happened when the tree was felled. And then taking a look at where the cracks are. So there's one that starts over here, all the way into centre. That one comes to about there as well. And then I suppose they finish over here. So wherever I get my bowl, it needs to avoid that. So I think I'll get a bowl in this section here, and then I'll get another bowl there with nice balanced grain. The twice turn bowl that I have in size measures 12 inches in diameter, but initially that would have been about 13 inches in diameter when I cut up the blank. So I'll cut about 13 inches long, and we'll just mark that, and I'll cut off that ring. So I'm going to mark out this where I want the bowl blanks to be. The chainsaw that I'm going to use for this ripping cut is the MS362 Stihl. So it's a smaller saw than I use for the cross cutting, and it's also fitted with a different bar. So the bar on this is designed for a chainsaw mill, however the chain is not, and that's the important thing to remember. So you'll notice on this surface how smooth it is. There's no steps, but most importantly, I was able to follow exactly along the pencil line, both on top and bottom, keeping this all even thickness. So these are now ready for bandsawing. I've just prepared this blank on the bandsaw, and my bandsaw is fitted with a blade that's 3/8 inch wide and 3 TPI. So it's got a 7.5 horsepower motor, which is way more than what most people would need. I can spend very long days here, day after day on the saw over winter time, and that extra power makes all the difference. But if you're in the market for a new saw, something between 2 and 3 horsepower works well. 3 is actually perfect. And that'll allow you to cut these thicker sections without running into any problems. So I'm going to just drill a hole in this piece first of all, and the hole is 1 inch in diameter, and I'm going to mount it on this here, which is the Ames Grigg spike plate. So that's made in the USA, and I just drill a hole, slide the blank onto that pin, and then the spikes will drive it with the tailstock, keeping everything in place. The tool that I'm going to use to rough shape this piece is the one with the black sticker, the GL number 3, and you'll be able to reference the sharpening instructions for that on my sharpening chart. But if you look here at the edge, it's got a 55-degree bevel at the top, heel is ground away, the bar diameter is 3/4 inch or 19 millimeters, and then the wing is swept back also about 19 millimeters. When I'm hollowing out the inside of the bowl, I obviously prefer to use a bowl saver such as the one-way coring system. But in this case, I feel there's a lot to learn by me showing you how to take the center out with just the bowl gouge, because not everybody watching will have one. And I do have a video, if you want to check out my list of videos, there's one specifically on the one-way coring system that will guide you through using it. So the first step here is to just check the distance of the tool rest. It's about 3/8 of an inch away or 10 millimeters. And I'm going to use the 5/8 inch bowl gouge, the GL4, 16 millimeters, just because I don't want to be as aggressive on the inside of the bowl. I'm going to take a moment to just talk about how I'm going to air dry this piece. So this time of the year, my kilns are not running, so air drying is my only option. And I suspect that many of you watching at home will not own a kiln also. But if you plan on building one, I do have a video showing the steps in constructing the chamber and also all the different electrical components that you're going to need to get that working. But whether I'm air drying or kiln drying this, I normally use a PVA sealer on the end grain. The reason I use PVA as opposed to anchor seal just makes my floor very slippy when I'm finishing it off at a later stage. So I'll pop that in the drill for a moment, but first of all, I want to introduce you to my biggest fan. So come on in. Here we go. So this is a wonderful extraction fan. It's got a big, thick electrostatic filter in it. It's about 4 inches thick, 10 centimeters, and the diameter is about 60 centimeters, 2 feet. Made by Powermatic. And I really like this because it's very, very quiet. Works well in a room like this. So in the background, this is actually running all the time. And I know you can't really hear it on the microphone. You'll hear it this time because it's in so close. Normally, I keep it back a little bit, keeping the air clear for myself. And I'll also put on my respirator in a moment as well, so you won't hear me talking. And I'll turn on this dust extractor as well that I've positioned outside. So the dust extractor is P-Flux 1 Laguna, which works well when I'm standing a single bowl. But of course, in my classroom, I have quite a large 10 horsepower dust extractor that will take the dust from all the lathes at once. So I'm going to use an electric drill for this. So we'll just start with the 2-inch pad on the inside, and then on the outside, we're going to use a 3-inch pad. Now, one of the problems with this finish, if you're not making a lot of bowls, it tends to go off fairly quickly within, I suppose, 6 weeks or so. So it's not a bad idea to buy smaller tins. I get it in the half-litre cans, or else you can get your hands on, they're called stop loss bags, and you pour that into the bags and squeeze the air out, and that will make it last for much longer. And I've heard lots of people very, very happy with the results from using those. Now in my case, I'm making so many bowls, I tend to never run into a situation where it's going hard. I tend to run out of it rather than throw any away. It's not a bad idea to take a measurement before putting it onto the vacuum chuck, just so you know what you've got to work with. So if I put those calipers up there for a second, and I'm measuring right there from the center, I have to be careful not to scratch it. So from heel to toe, make contact with the bevel. We'll stop there, and then we'll take the tool over here again and roll that in to meet it. So that's it. This piece is now ready for its new home.